Ole hyvä.
All right, can you guys hear me? Thank you. From the original program, you guys could see that there were supposed to be two presenters up here, so me and Hans Wallström, who is our sustainability director from Stockholm. But unfortunately, our Skanska group has a global travel ban due to the COVID-19 crisis, so I'm going to have to do the presentation on my own. But it's going to be all right, because I've practiced all weekend to do Hans's slides as well. So be nice to me in the questions section. But Skanska was asked to present here because we've been in the pilot for Swedish Green Building Council's net zero carbon certification system, and our pilot project for that is this one, Hyllie Terrass, which is located in Malmö. So I'm going to quickly explain to you how the certification system works, and then go through the 7 concrete steps that Skanska took to be certified according to this system. So this is our pilot project, Hyllie Terrass. It's 12 floors high, and it has around 14,000 square meters of leasable office area, so it's a commercial building. It's located in Hyllie, which is quite near our headquarters in Malmö, and it has a big focus on health and well-being as well as the environment. So it's going to be certified for LEED and WELL both. So it's important to note at this point that the zero CO2 certification system is not supposed to replace these traditional environmental certifications such as LEED or BREEAM. It's more of an add-on for those, and it's specifically for carbon, so it doesn't take into consideration the entire environmental perspective. The construction of this building has started at the beginning of this year, and it's going to be completed by the end of 2022. So this is the model for the certification system. As you can see, it has 2 sides. So there's the carbon footprint on the right side and the carbon handprint on the left side. So the carbon footprint of the building is split into 2 sections. There's the embodied carbon, and the limit in the red bubble is for offices specifically, as our pilot project is an office, 300 kilos of CO2 equivalent per square meter. You can see that it's not zero. That's where the word net comes into the certification. And for the operational carbon, there's also a limit, but the limit is dependent on sort of the mother certification. So if you're using LEED, the limit is the highest energy grade in that certification system. And if you're using BREEAM, it's the one for that, and so forth. So that also depends on the type of building. And here on the left side, you'll see the sort of carbon handprint, so the positive climate impact that the building can have. So on this side, you can create, for instance, a surplus of installed renewable energy. So you have to compensate for the energy that the building uses, but you can overdo it, sort of to compensate for the embodied carbon. Also in this pilot, the Swedish Green Building Council is looking at solutions where you could invest in energy efficiency projects in other buildings, so existing buildings, for instance, improving the energy efficiency of a neighboring building or something like this to make the climate impact of the project closer to zero. And then there are selected offset programs which are also accepted in this program, but the Swedish Green Building Council has been very strict about them, which ones you can actually invest in. And that's why there have so strict limits on the right-hand side to make sure that you can't just build a regular building and then pay for it on the other side. So you have to first fix your own building as far as you can. And this presentation is going to be sent out to all of you, so that's why there's a link at the bottom for more information on this subject. So how did we implement this certification in Hyllie Terrass? In Skanska, in this project specifically, we had a 7-step program which enabled us to reach the 300 kilo limit that was presented on the previous slide. So I'm going to go through these steps one by one. And the most important thing is to focus on the process. So you have to ensure that climate sustainability and carbon calculation is part of the process from the very beginning. So essentially, when you're doing a design of the building, you keep getting a new construction cost estimate. You have to ensure that your process works so that when you get that construction cost estimate, you have a carbon estimate at the same time, and that way you can make the carbon push your design in a certain direction, just as cost has done for years and years. Then you have to analyze the environmental, which is analyzing the environmental impact continuously. And the second part here is to ask questions and be demanding, which basically means that because the construction industry is so heavy on subcontractors and suppliers, you have to constantly be asking them to improve their carbon footprint in order to improve your carbon footprint. When we at the paying side or when we at the paying side start having really high expectations, that's when the supplying side will start having very high solutions. Next step is method of choice. So in this project, they looked through building it out of wood, for instance, which in the end did not become a possibility because the building is so big. They looked at using curtain wall elements, which in the end were not more sustainable due to the amount of steel they had, even though it was expected, since they're lighter than the sandwich elements, that they'd be better, but they weren't. So in the end, this is a sandwich element building, but still the carbon footprint was managed to be pushed into the limits of the certification system. The second step here is architectural simplicity. So basically, this is when you're looking at the amount of facade per floor square meter, for instance. The less facade there is, the less weight there is, and essentially the less carbon there is, and the less cost, but to lower the climate impact. We couldn't do a lot about that in this project because it had a very strong city plan, and because of the timeline we had for the project, we just had to go on with the design and the city plan. At this point, you can add the visible greenery if you want, even though on a plot this size, the positive climate impact of the trees can't do a lot, but every bit counts. Then when you've got the majority of the design down, you have to start looking at the products you're using and the materials you're using specifically. So in this project, they took a very long time on the procurement to decide which products to build the building out of, and they ended up finding a supplier from Central Europe who made these concrete elements that had a climate impact of 52% lower than the original estimate or the standard product, which is quite a significant decrease. This 52% was even though they had to transport the product into Sweden, the climate impact or the carbon impact was still 52% lower than having the Swedish-made product. In addition to using greener concrete, they used recycled steel in all the rebars and recycled aluminium in all the windows, for instance, to push down this carbon footprint. Now this is, after you have all those big things, then you keep getting smaller and smaller, so you can start looking at solutions like upcycling. And this picture is actually not from Hyljeterrass, it's from a ready building that we have also in Malmö called Epic, where they use 16 tons of recycled concrete in the flooring and 17 tons of recycled bricks on the facade, 77,000 PET bottles to create the acoustic paneling inside the walls, and which was then covered with 35,000 meters of upcycled window frames to make the design. So these are like smaller things you can do afterwards, after you've got all the big chunks filled, but the more we can push towards a circular economy, that's really where we can find the carbon savings in the construction industry. Fossil-free production, as you could see a couple presentations ago, there was a good slide on what the construction process does to the building, which I really enjoyed because people don't talk about that a lot. And this fossil-free production is something Skanska has done on 2 construction projects, so got completely fossil-free sites. And those pilots have gone quite well, so that's something we're looking to expand in the group. In this project specifically, it accounted for 11% of the deduction that was made in the carbon came from just this fossil-free site, which essentially isn't changing the building, it's just changing the way you're working. So that was a very positive find to have. And the ways you can do this is using renewable energy and, of course, fossil-free fuel on transportations and so forth. Then we get into the operational side or the life cycle side of the building. So nudging is a term from behavioral science, which basically means making environmentally conscious solutions so easy that the users of the building do them sort of accidentally instead of because they're for the environment. At this point, I remember to tell you, I didn't say in the beginning that in this certification system, you also have to count all the energy used by the users of the building, which is different from in LEED, for instance. You just just the real estate energy and the users can do what they want, but in this certification system, everything that happens in the building counts. So that's why you have to implement stuff like nudging. And then the final and maybe the most important step is partnerships. So in Hyllie area specifically, they have a big partnership with all the 27 developers involved in the area, the city of Malmö and E.ON, which is the electricity grid provider in the area, to create off-site energy production. So most people in this room probably know that you can't cover the electricity need of a building with just putting solar panels on top, because there just usually isn't enough roof, not at least for an office building or anything over like 2 stories high. So with these kind of partnerships, you can make dedicated solar grids or solar fields off-site and then dedicate the energy to the project specifically. And this is the way that you can like overdo your energy production to enable you to compensate for the embodied carbon of the building. So predicted results, 35% lower carbon footprint than originally. So the focuses were first on the process, then on the design, the materials, using recycling, fossil-free sites, nudging, and the energy cooperation with energy providers. So those 7 steps led to 35% lower carbon than originally planned. Now, I'm going to take this couple minutes that I have left to go over our projects here in Helsinki. So if you guys are interested in carbon neutral construction or environmentally friendly construction, these are projects that you could get involved in. So we're doing a redevelopment now next to our headquarters on Mannerheimintie. It's a ready completed building, so there's not that much that can be done there. But we have a project in Pasila and a project in Sörnäinen, which are on the drawing table, where we're looking very much to implement these findings that we have from the Malmö Hyllie Terrace project. Thank you everyone for listening to the presentation, and you can find both mine and Hans's contact information on the screen. So just send me a message if you're interested in any of the Helsinki projects, for instance. But if you have more specific questions to do with the certification system or the Malmö Hyllie Terrace project, I think it's better that you just send the email directly to Hans in Stockholm. Thank you.
Kiitos esityksestä. Eikö se ollut mahtavaa vauhtia, roppakaupalle vinkkejä ja jos mä nyt poimin tuosta 2 asiaa, voisin poimia paljon, mutta poimin vain 2. Yksi on se, että yhteistyö myös Pohjoismaiden välillä, mitä on alleviivattu aikaisemmin, niin pätee tähän. Opitaan muilta ja katsotaan, mitä tuolla vähän toisaalla ollaan tehty ja otetaan sieltä oppia meille. 2. Tässä siis taustalla on se mielenkiintoinen kysymys, niin kuin tässä tuli ilmi, että Ruotsin Green Building Council ja paikallinen teollisuus ja toimiala on miettineet, että mikä tämmöinen sertifikaatti voisi olla ja miten sitä voidaan kehittää, ja nyt siitä rupeaa oppeja olemaan. Teemme niin, että kysymykset kuullaan tilaisuuden jälkeen tai tämän session tuon loppupuolella, ja haluaisin kutsua Antti Ruuska sinut tänne eteen seuraavaksi.